Alrighty, now we're recording. Good morning, everybody. This is JP with Moto-Tech on our Moto blog. This is going to be number 4, I believe. On episode 4, we're going to be talking to CJ Cohen with Legacy Track Dayz. Want to give you guys an idea of what it is to be a track day organizer and what it all entails, what everything has to go through to be able to get you on the track at these certain locations, whether it's Homestead, Daytona, Jennings, VIR, all these other places that are at least in the southeast region that we're at. This kind of applies to all the other places in the U.S. too. So without further ado, I want to go and introduce CJ Cohen. Hey, sir. Thank you for joining us.
What's going on, brother?
Another day in the paradise. At least the weather is no longer in the triple digits anymore over here.
For now.
Oh yeah, don't jinx us. We want to keep it in the 90s or less here. You know, the shop gets really hot.
That's where we're at. We're in the 90s.
Oh, nice. Well, where are you at exactly? So everybody knows.
We're pretty much dead center between Orlando and Miami, about 2.5 hours north to Orlando, 2.5 hours south is Miami. So we would be considered South Florida.
Oh, wow. So you should have 90 degree plus weather down there because you're closer to the equator. Ha! Oh, nice.
It's actually, I lived in the mid-Atlantic in Maryland, like the D.C. metro area for 18 years. And summers there are hotter than summers here.
It's amazing. People don't understand that. They think that if you go north, it's actually cooler. But, you know, New York, Maryland, D.C., all that stuff, they get into triple digits up there.
Worse humidity.
Oh, yeah. That's the miserable part. That's what kills me about Alabama.
The other thing that you get a lot up there is you get these alert days where the air quality is based on a color code system. So I would say like 60% of summer days in the DC metro are considered red alert days, which are like low quality air breathing.
Oh wow!
We have literally never heard anything like that down here. So the air must be cleaner. I'm good with it.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Oh, awesome. So kind of let's start off. Kind of give us a history of when you started riding at an early age up to what kind of are you a racer or are you just a track day organizer? And kind of give us a collaborate and like a 5-minute spill of your history, your background.
All right. I'll do this as quickly as I can, or rather as short as I can. I always tell my wife to make a long story short, and she always says too late. So I started riding quads and dirt bikes probably 6 or 7 years old. I'll be 44 in T-minus 4 days.
All right.
That gives you an idea of how long I've been involved in motorsports. I did dirt bike racing when I was a little kid, from 7 till about 11. Moved to New York, lived in New York for a number of years, did a lot of quad and dirt bike racing up there. In the early 90s, probably 91, I had already been following sport bike racing, AMA, World Superbike, MotoGP, but for the most part, I hadn't really had any personal exposure to sport bikes. I just, we came from a middle to low income family, didn't have a whole lot of money, didn't have a whole lot of access to the expense of that kind of an environment. And after I graduated high school, I dated a girl that she had a ton of money and she loved motorcycles. She knew how much I loved motorcycles. And she bought me a used motorcycle for my birthday. And that was my first street sport bike. It was a 92 or 93 Katana 600. It was a total piece. But it was bought from a dealership, so I mean it had a lot of cleaned up, stuff. The guy who owned it before me put, colder plugs, advanced ignition, a stage 3 jet kit. So, it was fast when it ran, and it didn't run a lot. But my version of learning how to ride a motorcycle was a buddy of mine worked at the dealership, we went across the street to a Heckinger's parking lot, which is basically the equivalent of Home Depot.
Yep.
And I rode around the parking lot for 15 minutes before I took it on the street.
Wow.
And that was my training.
Huh.
Everything else was seat time on the street and running around and riding in literally every kind of weather. I rode on the street. I was a total squid.
We all start that way.
I right up until I crashed on a side road, and when I landed, like a little backcountry road, when I landed in the ditch, because it was a choice between the front end of a Suburban or the ditch. I took the ditch, and when I was on my way down, there was a ton of glass in the ditch, and I landed on it all and shredded up my left side. So from that day forward, I promised myself that I would be ATG, ATT. I would never ride without gear again.
Mm-hmm.
Then a bunch of my friends, a couple years down the road, were pushing me to go to the track because I was really good on the street. I always led our street rides. Like I said, I've been riding two wheels since I was 7 years old. So I started, leading our street rides, and finally I sucked it up and I went to a track day with Motorcycle Excitement, which was primarily doing track days at Summit Point Motorsports Park. I fine-tuned myself. I got a lot of great coaching from a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. One of my first coaches, actually raced in the Manx GP. He was a guy I rode with on the street, and he was a racer. And I asked the pivotal question that every new track day rider asks, which was, how do I drag my knee? And the best advice I ever got, and I've given it 100,000 times over, was stop trying. So I stopped trying, and within 3 sessions, I was dragging knee because he was showing me the race line. So I started doing track days consistently. I had a bit of a weight problem in the I want to say early 2000s. I had a couple of bad marriages, stuff, life gets in the way, things go down, and lost a ton of weight. Started coaching, started really fine-tuning my own personal skill set, spending a lot of time working on the track. When we would do the track day events, much like me, the organization I rode with did anywhere from 3 to 4 sessions, depending on turnout. And I'd run in every session. Mm-hmm. So I'd go out and I'd coach a novice. I'd come in a lap before the time would end for that session, and then I'd line up and I'd coach with intermediate, and then I'd come back in and I'd line up for advanced, and I'd go out and run my own stuff in advanced. When I got my license, finally, I started doing it in racer. So at first I was doing 3 sessions, and then when they would have 4-session availability, once I got my license, I'd go out and I'd run all 4 sessions. Literally, almost 1,000 miles in a weekend, if not more. So I got a lot of seat time. And when I started coaching only in the novice group because obviously, I was good enough that I was a solid intermediate rider, and we needed more coaching staff for that organization. So I focused on coaching in the novice group because I had already overcome all of the hiccups that I was, and the mistakes and the bad habits that I learned from riding on the street. Mm-hmm. And anybody who tells you that riding on the street makes you a good rider, I promise you, it's not true. You will learn so many bad habits riding on the street because you really can't use the motorcycle the way it was truly designed to be used. And so I progressively more and more stopped riding on the street as much and focused more on riding on the track. And because the organization that I rode with had at least 1 to 2 events every month, I was literally on the track. I was putting 500 miles to 3,000 miles in a month, just track day riding.
Oh yeah.
Coach and working on my own stuff. I started racing, and racing isn't cheap. For anybody that wants to do it, be prepared to spend a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Tires, parts, all that. I tried getting sponsorship, but the sponsorship now isn't like sponsorship like it used to be. Sponsorship the way it used to be was you had to be able to perform, and then you earned sponsors. Mm-hmm. Now everybody and their mother can fill out an application to be a sponsor, slap a sticker on their bike, and whether they're racing, track day riding, street riding, most of the companies out there, they want to advertise.
Right.
So by all the street riders and the track day riders advertising these sponsors, for lack of a better word, what happens is it affects the racers. So we don't get as much, we get smaller discounts or smaller giveaways or whatever it is that the companies, want to provide. Mm-hmm. Good luck getting any money unless you're a factory racer.
Yeah.
So I tried to get sponsorships, and I get a couple races here and there, but I never really was able to finish a full season. Fast forward a little more than a decade after working with pro racers, training pro racers, because listen, anybody can continue to ride and see things if they have good people in their corner. But there are a lot of racers out there that were racing as pros, mm-hmm. but privateers, and there were things that they couldn't overcome. Now, I'll be the first to say I'm definitely not the fastest guy on the track, but I'm consistent and I'm smooth and I'm clean. So a lot of guys who knew me would say, "Hey, man, you should go work with CJ. He's really good at teaching out bad habits and helping people progress." So I was working with pros, I was working with amateurs, I was working with track day riders, I was getting people off the street and bringing them to the track and teaching them in the parking lot of the track at the track days. Anything I could do to help people progress and become better riders.
Right.
And then in 2013, I moved to Florida. I have 2 kids here. Wanted to be closer to them and have a better relationship with my kids. My wife and our 3 children that are her kids. We picked up everything and came down here, and I saw there was a big hole in the market in Southeast, especially Florida, that there was really only one organization down here, and they had a different mindset than I do, and they did things differently, and I just felt like it was necessary for me to start our own organization. So that's how Legacy was born. And everybody asked me, why Legacy? What are you bringing to the table? You've never been a pro racer. You've been a track day rider and a street rider. And I said, it's not about my legacy that I want to bring to the table. It's about the legacy of the sport. Mm-hmm. Because the fact of the matter is, and anybody who follows the sport knows, it has deteriorated over the last 15 years. Even as early back, you can go back to 2009, 2010, it was still really good. And in Florida, even right up until the early teens, 13, 14, was still pretty good in Florida. Good turnouts in the paddocks. Mm-hmm. And it started going downhill. Things started, getting real rough. So in 2014, I went ahead and I started Legacy, June of 2014. And I proved that I was a capable organizer. I proved that I had something that not many other organizations had. I had a good program, a good structure. I was getting recognized by bigger organizations and big racers that knew me and knew what kind of person I was, and were contacting me saying that they wanted to work with us, maybe work out an advanced rider program. So that's something that potentially will be coming down the pike if we can get some more funding in the works. So a year went by, and we made contact with the AMA. It was basically a shot in the dark. Mm-hmm. I have been an AMA member for over 25 years. I figured, hey, there's no AMA track day organizations. There's nobody affiliated with the AMA.
Right. And
track day riders are mostly street riders. So it made sense to me to approach them to be either sponsored by or an affiliate of the AMA, because the AMA is the largest, oldest sanctioning body for road racing and motorcycle safety guidelines and laws in the country and probably the world. So it seemed like a smart decision to go after them, and we made some stuff happen. And my good friend, who is the head of race direction for the AMA, which is Bill Cumbo. He and I went back and forth trying to figure out the verbiage and kind of see how we could make it work. And we came up with a plan, and they had introduced it to the marketing department, and everybody was like, yes, this is what we think will do the trick. And we've been the only AMA Track Day affiliate in the country since that happened about 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
4 years now. And the bottom line is that if any track day organizer wants to get involved as a track day affiliate for the AMA, they kind of have to follow our, I don't want to say curriculum because it's not really a curriculum, but kind of the similar structure of the program, because it is one of the safest programs in the U.S. We have a great accident record of very minimal incidents. We focus on rider safety and rider education more than anything else. We don't run lap timers because then it becomes a race, and that's when people get hurt. We try and do our best to provide absolutely everything we can for a track day rider. But then on that, we also are a road racing school, which, with the help of Absolute Cycles a couple years ago, we got our name in the ring for being a school leader. So we are a CCS ASRA school. We're a school, and there are several other racing organizations in the country that accept our certification because if they go through our program, not only do they go through a very strict program, but we don't just teach them the basics of what it is to be a racer. We work with them on track. We work with them in a classroom setting. But it's what we teach them in the classroom setting and what we teach them on the track that will make people better at racing and riding. It's not just about ethics. It is important to have the ethics of being in a racing community, because you always hear about there's always one bad apple, and definitely in the case of racers, there's always somebody that's got an attitude. There's always somebody that
has something to prove.
Brings kind of a negative vibe to the environment. And we try and teach that out of people long before they ever get into that environment. So last year, 2017, was the first time since I received my race license that I was able to complete a full race season. And I managed to come within 3 points of a championship. I actually led the championship, and even though I had a major crash in February, I was really tore up most of the season, but I still managed to come within 3 points of the championship. And I tell people, listen, don't think of age as an inhibitor. Think of age as a maturing factor, because the fact of the matter is that there's 17-year-olds out there that could smoke 90% of us.
We both know.
Heck, at our last track day event, we had a 12-year-old out there that was making mincemeat of some of us seasoned, track day riders. Along with one of our newest members of our family, Miss Jamie Ostadillo, who is now the only female not only to podium in Moto America, but twice now, because she just did it again.
Yeah.
And she was amazing to work with. We get guys like Max Flinders, who you obviously know very well, who came out and loved our event, had a great time, even though we had to put him in novice group. nothing like a Moto America guy, having a novice sticker on his bike. I thought it was pretty amusing. I think we did that more as a joke, and I know Max had fun with it. Especially when the corner workers at Jennings were screaming that he was wheeling out of every turn.
On those power wheelies?
That wasn't his fault. That's what happens when you're on a fully tuned Moto America super stock bike.
Yeah.
But we get a lot of pros out. Josh Herron has come to one of our events. One of our AMA, our instructor for our school, when he can make it, is actually a former AMA pro with over 330 something podiums in his career, Darren Luck. Outstanding guy, very diligent. Very, very easy to talk to, but he knows what he's talking about. And so when you sit down in a classroom with a guy like Darren Luck, you're taking away a lot more than just ethics and basic stuff off the track. I mean, he's teaching way more than that. And I try and mirror that as much as I can. I mean, I don't have his experience, but I sure as heck try and follow suit, even though it's my organization. I'm always learning and I'm always taking from, what other people that have been doing it,
for a long time
also know, because I'm not the end all be all. And I don't profess to know everything, but, road racing and motorcycles in general have been 85 to 90% of my life at this point. So, I mean, it's everything that I can do to try and just continue to provide. It's not an easy industry to be in. It's a really expensive industry to be in. When we take a loss, it's an out-of-pocket loss, unless we have investors, which in most cases, I haven't really had the luck of having too many investors involved, which kind of limits how many events we can have. But what we lack in quantity, we make up for in quality.
Right. That's good. I mean, that's really going to give a lot of people an idea of.
Hold on, I lost you. I can see it, but I can't hear it.
Uh-oh. I love technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're quiet. I don't know what it is.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No. I mean, I can hear you, but...
Oh, you gotta love these technical difficulties that are here. There you go. Get a zoom-in picture of Mr. CJ. And also, you have you got a nice little 600 there. The little bikes. Nah, I'm just messing.
Nice little 600, he says.
Yeah.
This guy. Hey, hold on. Let me go into I'm going to go into my sound and see if I can't figure out what's going on.
Okay.
See if it's not on my side.
No worries. I'll talk in the background till you come back. So understanding what a track day organizer does. I mean, you have other track days out there. You have the Florida Track Days. You have Legacies here. You have SCT. You have track day winners. You have numerous other ones that are out there in around the U.S. that put these things together. I was lucky. I was able to help sponsor two track days at Jennings. But I mean, even with the amount of money we were able to put in, it doesn't cover all the expenses, which most tracks are anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 just for the weekend, and that's just to be able to get 50 riders out there spread across the novice to advanced level to even the race level if they come out there and they're actual racers to come in there. So that's how much money is upfront and invested to be able to secure a spot at one of these tracks, and then that's why your track money, when you go and pay for your weekend, that tries to offset those costs, because you have to pay not only for the track itself, you got to pay for coaches, you got to pay for insurance, you got to pay the track itself, other fees that they like to throw in at the last minute. You also got traveling expenses. I mean, you have so much stuff that's embedded into this thing that, 10 grand sounds like a lot, but that's actually really small money. I mean, if you look at Barber is way more to rent there that weekend, but each track has its own benefits. I like Jennings in a sense because you have Tentacle one way, you have Superfast another way. I love Coda because Coda is 1000 friendly, and when I go to Little Tally, the 1000s I run, it's almost miserable in a sense because you can't get out of second, third gear, while the little 600s here are in fourth, fifth gear on the straights there, even when you try to regear it. So each spot has its own amount of money that it requires to get into. On that. So hopefully, CJ, can you hear us now?
Oh, yeah. No, I got you back.
Oh, awesome. So kind of give us a rundown of, so a lot of people down here in the Southeast, around where I'm at, from the New Orleans to the Jacksonville, Florida area, there's not a lot of road racing. There's a lot of drag strip racing here because there's so many drag strips here. So, and then people, when I talk to them, I personally talked about road track, and they're like, oh, it's just so expensive to get into on the drag strip. I pay $10. I can wear flip-flops and a t-shirt and go down, the straight for $10. But you're asking me to spend over $1,000 to go to a track day because you got to have the right gear. You have to have, the right setup. You have to, pay for your track weekend. To kind of give a rundown of for a person that's walking off the street that wants to go and do your track day at Legacy for one weekend, what is all required and why is it required, and give an average cost of what it would be for that one time just to go, and then the follow-on cost afterward on how much reduced it is on the back end?
It's kind of relative because in a lot of cases, most riders, they don't necessarily have all the gear that they need, but they do have some of the stuff. Like we rent leather suits. We work with a local American brand company that's actually here out of Orlando. That they've been producing suits for over 35 years. Syed Leathers. So we rent suits for Syed. They've gotten behind us in a big way. And just to give you an idea of when I say they've gotten behind us in a big way, every suit you see hanging in my garage right now, these are all Syed leather suits for all of our events. And we try and simplify. It's $150 for the daily rental. And for these particular suits, if you wanted to buy them outright, it would be $300 or $350. Compared to most suit companies, you can go out and you can go to like Bike Bandit or one of those others and buy like an RST or whatever for $450, somewhere around there. These are all brand new suits. Matter of fact, I think only one or two of them have actually been used for track days at this point, with no damage, no incidents. You actually know one of the people. We'll leave that alone.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I mean, these suits are just as good as anything you can get, from any one of the other providers. The only difference is that it's an American brand suit. Also, boots, gloves. You need to have a good helmet. When you're racing, dates matter for production on a helmet. When you're doing track days, it doesn't really matter as much as long as they're in good working condition. They're not banged up real bad or scratched up real bad or there's obvious damage. Gauntlet gloves, they come past the wrist. Definitely a necessity, especially in a crash. I mean, you come off the bike, the first thing that goes down is the hands.
Yep.
Depending on how you land, your automatic reflex is to plant your hands. Well, if you don't have a set of gauntlet gloves, there's a strong chance that there goes your flashing again.
Yep, I think that's weird.
It's your fault.
Yep, I think so. I think my camera's having technical difficulties with my camera. So the flashing part is just going to be okay. Most people are just going to kind of look at you instead. So.
All right, fair enough. So don't look at his camera. Look at my camera.
There you go.
But yeah, don't buy El Cheapo gear. Pay attention to what you're buying. You get a lot of people on Facebook that, I paid $80 for this helmet and I crashed in it. Well, you got lucky. I can tell you right now that 90% of crashes that take place on cheap helmets don't end well.
That's true.
I've probably somewhere in the triple digits, over 100 people that I know that have died. You tried to work it and it didn't work. Over 100 people that I know that have died from not wearing proper gear, and myself as a former street rider, also, I got in a really bad accident without the right gear, and I've got scars up and down my left side, my arms and my armpit, down to my kidneys, and from not wearing the right gear.
Yep.
So you definitely got to make sure you're wearing the right gear. Boots have to be in good shape. You can't wear ratty boots. You break ankles and tear your feet up. And, listen, you got to be able to walk. And without walking, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot else. So, make sure you're wearing proper gear. And, we have a full list on our website, legacytrackdayz.com, and that's DAYZ. We have a full list of bike prep, full list of track prep, for gear. We do this thing called a lunchtime street ride at some of the track days that we do, where we actually let street riders come on track and do a couple of sighting laps with coaches in front and back. We don't go much more than 50 miles an hour. but it's a good opportunity for riders who have never been on the track to experience what that feels like. And you know, people listen. You got to look at it like this. Okay, what's your body worth? What's your head worth? You know, I know you don't want to spend a ton of money, and I know it's tough to sometimes invest a big chunk of money. But even when you're on the street, you know, when you're on the track, you know, everybody says, "Oh, I don't want to mess my bike up," or "I don't want to." Listen, you get hit by a car, you get T-boned, you run off the road, whatever. You're going to be in a lot worse shape on the street than you are on the track. The benefit of the track is it teaches you how to ride at a quicker pace, so it makes you more aware when you're on the street. And a saying that I like to tell everybody is a year on the street is worth a day on the track.
Right.
What that means is you could spend a year riding the street and getting all the seat time you want. You're going to learn more in a day on the track than you are a year on the street. Any real track rider, racer, pro is going to tell you the same thing. You know, the street, like I told you earlier, the street just produces way too many bad habits. And you're really never as aware of what's going on around you. I mean, you know, people take their mirrors off and they're always looking over their shoulder. You know, that's fine. I rode with my mirrors off and I looked over my shoulder, but I didn't start doing that until I was a track rider. And I started learning how to be more aware of my surroundings because, you know, there's going to be bikes coming up, you know, 20, 30, 40 miles an hour faster than me. And if I'm going to make a move around somebody that's going slower, that's holding me up, of course I need to know that they're coming. So, you know, you learn to kind of glance over your shoulder and just kind of get a gauge on your surroundings. So
yeah,
back to the point of the pricing is that, you know, you're going to spend a little money up front. Your initial investment, you know, it's definitely going to be on the high side. There's a way around that if you don't have the money to set up your bike completely. We have actual track bike rental companies that we work with, TBR and Bike Pass, both rent motorcycles, and they almost act as like a pit crew for you. And both of those organizations, if I'm not mistaken, do gear rental as well. So, you know, suits, boots, gloves, helmets, potentially. You'd have to talk to them about the definitive nature of everything that they rent. But, you know, we definitely rent suits. They definitely rent bikes. And basically it becomes almost like your own private pit crew. You pay the fee, and you get to ride all day. They take care of your fuel, they wrench for you, they do everything. And, you know, fortunately, both Bike Pass and TBR, the owners have worked with Legacy for a while. Seth Starnes and German Vaca are pretty well known in the industry, and they work with us. They both coach for us. You know, we have guys that I race with, like Dustin Richards, who also works at TBR. So I mean, we've got a lot of people that we always make sure are at our events to kind of make it feel a little bit easier to get a start. And you know, it can be a little bit daunting when you first look at it. It's like sticker shock, you know, when flat screen TVs first came out, you know, people looked at the sticker shock and went, "Oh my God, it's $25,000 for a 46-inch TV." Well, now you get them for $400 or $500, and there's still people going, "Oh my God, $400 or $500 for a flat screen TV."
Yeah.
So you're never going to please everybody, and
That's
you're never
true.
going to make everybody happy. But you know, unfortunately, track day prices are pretty much where they are because of the amount of money it takes to go into renting a track and getting insurance and getting emergency services and getting corner workers and making sure that there's vendors there accessible so that you guys can, you know, have tire service and have gear service and just so many different avenues and so many different you know, things that go into doing, you know, a track day.
Right.
And I think after looking, there are only one or two other track day organizations that are anywhere near where we operate that have the same kind of pricing we do. We're on the low end of the scale. You know, like we've got an event at Homestead Miami Speedway on September 30th.
Mm-hmm.
That's $200. Now you go to a pro track like Homestead, almost anywhere else in the East Coast and most of the country, and you're probably going to pay anywhere from $25 to $50 a day more, depending on the organization,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what they offer. But we also offer a membership, which helps get you parts and services cheaper. We have trackside mechanics that all honor our membership, so you get discounts if you're a VIP member with Legacy. And just to give you an idea, because obviously I kind of have to give some props to our vendors, just to give you a brief name off of some of the vendors that we use. Obviously, you see we've got Moto D right there on my shirt, but we also work with Woodcraft, Armor Bodies, Hindle, Engine Ice, Syed Leathers. We're involved with CCS, Azra, AMA, Moto America. We've got MRM Cycles, who is the official trackside mechanic for all of our local events, because he wrenches for my bikes for my race weekends, and is who keeps me competitive in the class that I race. So he's out as often as he can be. So I mean, we make things available for everybody to save money, and in the grand scheme of things, that's really our goal. Is we want to get as many people on track as possible, and we want to get as many people off the street that have never been to the track, so that they can become, safer, more competent riders. Now, please don't take that the wrong way. In no way, shape, or form am I calling you incompetent. But what I am saying is that if you've never ridden the track, there are a lot of things that you can learn from riding the track that will make you a safer, better rider on the street.
That is true.
Period.
And also,
anybody who argues that fact with you, anybody who tries to tell you that's not true, that we're just track superstars that are trying to be professionals. This is my profession. This is what I do for a living. One of several things I do for a living.
right.
But this is my livelihood, and it wasn't always my livelihood. But racing and being at the track has always been part of my life.
Right. I do agree.
And at least for the last 2 decades. So take it from somebody who's been everything from just a little dirt rider all the way up to a street squid, to a track day guy, to a racer, to an organizer. I've seen every aspect of this sport from the beginning to where it is now. And I promise you, if you go to the track and you do a track day and you pull the trigger and you do that first event, you will understand what everybody has been telling you, and you'll want to do it again, and you'll find any way, by any means, to get back and do it again, so you can continue to learn and grow as a rider.
I agree with you there. That's all really good information to push out to everybody. We're kind of winding down on the back end, so we can keep it the video short, be able to post up and everything. What I'd like to close with is you hit a lot of good points. A lot of people don't understand they're always, especially on the novice level. I know I did when I first came out. Hey, how do I drag knee? How do I get faster? Why is everybody passing me? X, Y, Z. There's so many different factors in there. Do you have the right bike setup? Do you have the right gearing setup? Are you overthinking too much? And one of the big things you hit right there is, everybody says, oh, I just need to go faster and faster and I can get better. But that's not true. You need to get smoother and you got to get consistent. Speed comes with both those combined. It's kind of like a triangle pyramid. You have to have those two to get to equal faster speed, safer speed. So that way you're not taking out the guy to the right or left or behind you or in front of you. And stay within your skill sets while you have coaches around you that are able to help progress you as you're going. And
here's a little saying for everybody, and you can lock this in your mental Rolodex and keep it there, because it's probably the best information next to stop trying. It's probably the best information I ever received and it was from my mentor, Roger Lyle from Motorcycle Excitement. And I'm sure there have been dozens of other people to say it. I know I've heard many other people say it, and I say it constantly. Remember these words. You have to go slow in order to learn how to go fast. Mm-hmm. Okay? Just jump on a bike and rip it and think everything's just going to come. Going slow teaches you how to be smooth. Being smooth is what's going to evolve into becoming a faster rider. Yep. So all those things that you can't seem to get done during your track day experience, it isn't because you're not capable. Capability is a matter of seat time. What it is it's the lessons that you need to learn from the people that have been doing it for as long as we have that are going to help you get to that next step. So when we tell you, hey, slow down out there, pay attention to your race line, pay attention to reference points, pay attention to your coaching staff. Our coaches for Legacy, I can only speak for Legacy because obviously, you know, it's my organization, and I'm very meticulous about how our coaches do things. And JP will tell you that I have no problem wagging a finger at somebody when they're not doing something that I need them to do on the track to help the riders be better.
Right.
I'm not saying JP. I'm not saying that I had to wag my finger at you.
No,
I'm just saying, as a new coach, he's one of JP is, by the way, but JP was introduced as one of our new novice coaches. So he's going to be working with us for our novice rider out on track. But as a coach, the only job they have isn't to police you, which is what control riders are out there to do. In my opinion, there's two types of people that work with you on the track. There's coaches and there's control riders. Coaches are out there to teach you. Coaches are out there to work with you to help you improve. Think of that in the respect of a professional sport. They don't have a coach on the sideline because he's just there to bark at you and tell you what you're doing wrong. No, he's there to help you become a better athlete. He's there to help you become better at the sport that you have chosen. And don't let anybody kid you. This is absolutely a sport. You absolutely need to be aware of your health and your fitness. You also absolutely need to be aware of how to play the game with those around you. Because you're out on track at 100 miles an hour, and the riders next to you may not be as good as you or may be better than you. You have to know how to play nicely with the other boys and girls. It's just very important. It's very simple. But when coaches out on track, those coaches are out there specifically with the purpose of helping you become better. In my opinion, based on what I have seen in over 20 years, control riders, their job is to police you. My thought is, on track, that's what you're trying to get away from. You don't want to be policed. You don't want to be yelled at or scolded. I mean, obviously, if you're doing something completely ignorant, you deserve to be yelled at or scolded.
Yep.
But the reality is that I hear more often than not stories of control riders. Oh, they were just out on track chasing each other around and they didn't really help anybody. I hear that story a lot. So, you know, I apologize if there's any control riders watching this that you know, take away the wrong thing. I know there are many of you that work with organizations that you guys are exceptional riders and, quite honestly, should be considered coaches. But there are way more control riders out there that's exactly what they're doing. I don't know why my camera just got all fuzzy.
That's all right. There you go.
We're both having camera problems.
Yeah.
So when you're out there with a coach, you know, trust them, work with them. You know, also when it comes to social media, and I'll put this out there like this, if you had a good experience, no matter what organization you're with, no matter what organization you ride with, whether it's mine, whether it's John Cook, whether it's STT, you know, whoever it is, no matter what organization you're out there with, go to their page, their company page. Give them a review. Tell people what you liked about it. Tell people what you didn't like about it. because that doesn't just help people to decide whether or not they're going to ride with another organization or not. That helps people. That helps the owners. That helps us decide. Figure out how to make our events better.
Mm-hmm.
What we can do better. And if you don't feel comfortable saying it in public setting, which Lord knows I see a lot of stuff that comes out of people's mouths in public setting that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have any qualms with, but then they're afraid to give a review. If you don't want to give a review, I can't speak. If you don't want to give a review publicly, send us a private message. Hey, I did your event at such and such a track. I worked with such and such coach or such and such CR, and I had fun. I had a great time. I did this. I did that. But don't be afraid to give us that but, because we need that to become better at what we do.
Right.
We need that to provide a better environment. Because I don't put up with egos. I don't put up with, track day heroes, coming out and they're there to ride, and then they're trying to tell other riders how to ride. And it's like, listen, we've got coaching staff for that. You
Yep.
let us handle that. You go out and you enjoy your ride.
I agree.
Because this is a family environment, and that's what we want. We want a family environment. We want to have fun. We want to be laughing and joking.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to feel pressure. You don't want to feel ego. You don't want to feel like somebody's there. It's like the I hate to use this, and I don't know, it might be some kind of copyright infringement here, but this is not a no lunk zone. But this isn't Planet Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we don't want people to feel intimidated.
Right.
One of the reasons why we support women in this sport as much as we do, because there's not, statistically, and I get a lot of hassle for this, but statistically, there are significantly more guys in this sport than there are women.
That is true.
I'm not going to say that every single one of the women that don't do track days because they're intimidated, but they need to we need to make them feel more comfortable. Let's be honest. They weigh less than us. They can get on a bike and go faster than us if they were trained properly.
Right.
So there needs to be more women in this sport, because they have a really good opportunity to come in like Jamie did, and like Melissa Paris, who's one of her coaches, and like Patricia Fernandez, who races in over in Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
and is considered now to be one of the fastest female road racers. True road racers.
Right.
There are a lot of great women in this sport, and we need more. So we support more women coming into this sport. We work with an organization, a race team. It's a national endurance team run by a very good friend of mine, Janine Schroeder, called Ride Like a Girl Racing. They have a clothing line. They have all kinds of great stuff. They do all kinds of great promotions for women. We had a full event with promoting their endurance team in mind, and the idea of that event was to give money to their endurance team to help them continue racing.
Right.
And we have coaches that are on that team. We have friends that are on that team,
That's really awesome.
It's very important to get them involved, or get them more involved, because I see too many beautiful girls that are out there riding with, tank tops and booty shorts and low cut sneakers and no socks, and wearing wrist cut gloves, and how many women in the last year or two that were exceptional riders,
Yep.
that were out wearing not enough gear, that have died.
Yeah.
And
That's a big
for
thing, is wearing
fact,
gear.
People, period. Men and women. It's important that you guys get the experience of a track, because it helps you respect how important safety is that much more.
I agree with you there.
I've babbled on that topic long
No
enough.
worries. But at least we kind of close on the back end on the safety side, because that was always our closing on our moto blogs here, is having the right gear, wearing the right gear all the time. And yes, there's a lot of people. Florida is a no helmet law over there, which it still mind boggles me a little bit. I see so many people, especially on the interstate, flying by me with no helmets, just wearing sunglasses, riding two up on there, and And other states are that way too. I look at it as, if you're going to go down, I may break an arm, I may break a leg, I may break my back, but once my head hits, I'm already done with it. And there's been many times at the track that people have wrecked, and I don't want to sugarcoat it for people that when you go to the track, it's always a safe environment based on everybody around you and the track day organizers that put it together, make it as safe as possible. But if you're an unsafe rider, there is a chance that you could go down on there. And if you go down, if you don't have the right gear, we just don't know what's going to happen. Everything is always a stroke of luck, and that's why we always stress the right gear. Stay inside your skill sets. Don't try to be a novice guy walking out the door. And I've heard this before. Oh, it's my first day today, and I'm going to be in an intermediate or advanced by lunchtime today. I don't know any organization out there that will automatically advance you straight to advance on the first day. It's usually you do your entire weekend and you ride with other coaches in those levels there, and they make the determination if they're going to bump you up. You don't walk into an organization thinking that this is my first day. Within an hour, I'll be the advanced group out there leading everybody because I can do 150 on the interstate. Doing 150 on the interstate is much different than going, Coda's a good one because it has one of the longest stretches out there. You can hit 150 easy on there. But, go down to Little Talladega. Try to do 150 in that little small spot right out of, turn, let's say, turn 5. On that corner there. They're just, unless you have that kind of skill set to be able to do it, it's a lot different than being on the street. And I've seen so many bikes wreck.
It's actually too bad that we're as far south as we are, because I would love to take a lot of our riders up to a track up in West Virginia, Summit Point Motorsports Park, but they have 4 different tracks within their facility. And they have a track there that used to be raced on that's not raced on anymore. That's called the Shenandoah Circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, just so that you understand, Shenandoah Circuit is a 2.2 mile track. It's between 1.9, depending on configuration, and 2.2 miles.
Right.
And it has 20 turns.
That's a lot of turns.
22 turns. That is literally, and I've been on a bunch of tracks, that is literally the most technical track in the United States. I don't care what you throw at the table. Go run the Shenandoah Circuit at Summit Point Motorsports Park.
And
if you as a novice can go run that track and come out of that and not have learned something, you're doing it wrong.
It's a very humbling experience. And when we talk about technicality on a track, it's not how fast we go straight. It's how can you maintain a consistent time along with all the turns, because you have a lot of turns. Turns reduce time frame, and if you're not maintaining your speed, if you're not apexing properly, if you're not holding your race line, and when you go to a track day, you'll understand what a race line is, on there. So we do stress that if you haven't been to a track day, go ahead and just spend the money, get one track weekend in of it. You'll learn so much that's you can apply to the street to make you a much more offensive and more situational aware track or motorcycle rider. Because don't just do it for yourself, but do it for others out there on the road for you that are with you, to make yourself a much more complete rider than there is. And also, we're pretty much almost out of time on this one. I really want to appreciate CJ from Legacy Track Dayz for joining us. We always have some of our longer ones with business owners, because there's so much information to push out there. So I hope you guys do enjoy it. I hope you guys actually watched all of it. If you have any questions, we're going to be posting it up on YouTube, and it's going to be on Facebook under our Moto-Tech thing. We share it almost everywhere that's on there. Post your comments on there. CJ's name will be on there, so if you need to send them direct messages, don't forget we do have Homestead on September 30th, that weekend down there. I know it is a little bit of a far drive. I'm going. If you need to carpool and trailer, let me know. Just make sure you book your time out there, so that way we know how many people are going to be there, so that way we can space out our coaching and try to make it as much fun as possible with you guys and all. So, but thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, CJ.
Not a problem, man. Glad to be a part.
Anytime. All right, so thanks, guys, and stay tuned for our next episode 5. We're going to be doing it with Cycle Gear, Miss Kristen over here in Mobile. We work really well with them. There's no issues between us, so I really like to be able to show what they do and what they contribute to the motorcycle community, even though they're not a repair shop and they're not a track organizer and all, but they have a lot of gear and a lot of technical information on all the gear there, depending on who you talk to, because they all have to have certifications in each one. So thank you again, and hope you have a great time, CJ.
Peace out, guys.
Thanks.